if it's just me, but I've started to notice as I'm going through YouTube and watching budgeting videos and watching YNAB videos that my situation is pretty different from the videos I've seen. I wanted to say welcome if this is your first time here. Glad to see you or maybe see your visits. My name is Jess, and I was recently laid off from my tech job. I live in NYC with my partner and two young kids. At the beginning of January, I did a fresh start, and my goal for this year is to get extremely accurate with our budget, to get our spending in check, and to make sure that as I was doing those two things, I wasn't majorly sacrificing the quality of our life and causing any mental health crises. So, the reason for the fresh start and these goals that I have with a budget now is because myself and my family are living on severance. My partner is also working full time, but they have recently given notice to their job. They'll be ending it in the next couple of months. And so, my hope with this, as I am sort of journaling in video form, how our budget is changing over time, is to make sure that we know exactly how much we need for our essential bills and what we typically spend on our family quality of life. So, my budgeting primarily over the past couple of months has been a lot of observing our trends, taking a look at how we're spending, and looking at places in our budget where we can reduce cost, or if there are a lot of hot spots, which you'll see last month we had a couple of those, that we're paying close attention to that spending and thinking about ways we can change it. Above all, I want to stay very aligned with my partner on our goals. I don't really think budgeting works unless both parties involved who are making spending decisions and, frankly, earning income decisions, both of those folks should be aligned on the path forward. So, once a month, my partner and I have our money talk. We call it money talk. When we first started using YNAB, it was like a kicking and screaming, knockdown, drag out, probably 10-minute conversation before one person would get up from the table and storm away. We've gotten a lot better since that time. And so it's really important for me to keep this as an open conversation with my partner and to make sure they're coming along on this journey as well. So, a couple of things that have changed since my last video. As I have noticed the income that we have being a little bit more sporadic, it has changed also in the past couple of months as my partner had a parent that passed away, and there was some additional income we received from that estate. It didn't really feel like the semi-monthly budget with me videos made a ton of sense. There was either, too much variation or very little was changing month to month. And so I started really just thinking about what kind of video makes sense, what kind of topics make sense, what kind of things could I share about our budget that are, different from what exists in YouTube, at least in my algorithm today. So I wanted to focus on our spending trends and a couple of the views that I made that have been helping me keep track of our budget and our quality of life. The first thing I did with our fresh start was to reorganize our budgeting categories a bit. And so you'll see on the side here, we've got essential bills. This is a category that is basically our non negotiable. Every month, we have a certain amount of things like our utilities, our mortgage, etc., that we have to pay absolutely no matter what. And so I wanted to get as clear as possible about what that monthly amount is to make sure that that could be covered by severance and any additional income that we have coming in. My first goal was to figure out if severance was enough, and then if it was not, to really see, what's the difference in how much that covers versus like what we would need to make up the difference. The next category that we have is family quality of life, and that's everything that makes our lives a little bit more fun, a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit less stressful, a little bit easier. And that includes things like, uh, the kids having different enrichment classes or going to summer camp or, paying for our personal care or paying for, birthdays and holidays and gifts and stuff. So this is a category that's also just as important to us. It is one where I think we can look a little closer and be a little bit stricter on our budgeting if we wanted to reduce some of the cost. But as I said before, my goal is not to go to living on a shoestring budget. I don't want to sacrifice the quality of our lives to save um, money, beyond what feels reasonable. And the next category we have is childcare costs. Again, this is fixed. This is the amount of money that we pay for our children to have childcare during the day. This is something that might change when my partner is no longer working their full time job. We haven't discussed it yet, but for now, it's a fixed cost. And so it's not something that we're looking to trim back. Food and dining is one that includes, all of our eating out and all of the groceries and other food that we pay for. It's been relatively steady and stable. I think one of the areas that my partner and I would really like to focus on is cutting down on eating out. It's a little tricky when both parents are working full time and there's not a lot of time for cooking left at the end of the day when both kids are, getting home from a long day and also tired and also hungry. So it's a place where I think, one, we may have some more flexibility in the future into an area where we feel like is an easy place to curb some spending. The next one is car cost. This is the cost of our vehicle. That includes like paying for tolls, paying for parking, paying for the car payment, paying for car insurance, etc. This right now is essentially a fixed cost. There is like, the cost of gas, but we buy gas pretty infrequently. So I've just rolled that all in. And for the most part, I'm assuming this is a fixed cost that's not going to change right now. The next category we have is recurring bills and subscriptions. This is an area where I think I have focused my attention on really, really, really trimming down. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But basically, this is like the cost of every subscription that we pay for, either monthly or annually. And this is like apps and web services and um, streaming, shows, etc. It feels really high. It has been really high for a long time. And so I think this is the area, if I'm getting out the scissors, I don't think that's a great metaphor. If I'm looking for places to make some drastic cuts, this is the first place I'm going to go. And then I think the second place is eating out. I don't really want to make a ton of other drastic cuts. Most places we can't. Some places we like potentially could, but those are kind of a if it's absolutely necessary. So you can see January, February, March, we have like a very gradual trending down line, which was very positive sign for me. I felt like we were doing pretty good with like reducing our spending. You can see there's a pretty big jump in April. A couple of things happened. It was time for the summer camp and some of the summer classes our kids do to be signed up for and paid for. And then we also had an extended period of time off of school. So we had some extra childcare costs this month. Otherwise, I think things stayed relatively the same. We had some annual fees for our credit cards due this month. And then I think for April, we had a little bit more spending in our essential bills. We'll take a look and see what that came from. So, on the budget, a couple of things changed. I created some views, specifically this view called Safe to Spend, which is really, I use an emoji called SOS. This is the categories that I want to track in our budget where I feel either become hotspots and get overspent pretty frequently, or I think they have the potential to become hotspots, or they're areas where I'm looking to reduce our spending, maybe make some cuts to how much we budget for each month, or we need to, have a come to Jesus discussion about what are we doing here. So I've got the eating out categories, which I mentioned. I've got a couple of our family quality of life, specifically these three that have the SOS emoji: household supplies, my own spending category, and some of our like Uber and Lyft rides, parking tickets that we've acquired from the city of New York. And those are the ones that I think tend to get the most out of control. Personal care, I think for the most part, we stay on budget. We had a little bit of overspend last month. Clothing, again, I think for the most part, we stay on budget. Occasionally, we kind of have these spikes, especially when a season changes and our kids have grown a lot and need new clothes. You can see that happened this month. We actually had a bunch of stuff that we returned as well. So while this is overspent for the moment, I think actually we credited back a little bit more than this amount. So that will reconcile, but I kind of expect this spike to happen occasionally. And then otherwise, these little yellow icon emojis next to these just mean I haven't created a budget for these categories yet. I've been trying to go through the budget and put targets for everything. I think for the most part, I've done that. There's a couple stragglers left. Um, Unexpected spending is kind of usually the category where we have a forgot to budget for. And then, we have a category that is like buying gifts for friends, which pops up from time to time. Had a gift that we purchased this month. And then family activities, this is for things like going to the zoo, going to the museum, etc. I probably do need to have a target set for this that I want to contribute to monthly. There's not a fixed amount that we used every month, so I might just set up a savings builder. But this month I renewed our zoo membership and I actually got a $50 discount on that. So I was pretty pleased with myself for that saving. I'm going to go ahead and fix these underfunded categories from April. The household supplies got really, really out of control last month. I think this is definitely like a time for a come to Jesus meeting to figure out what's going on here. I would say, you can see my target here is 450. You can see that I added, on top of that 450 an extra $100. And you can see we still overspent by $275. So something real is happening here. I would say, on average, if you look at these averages, you can see the average assigned and spent for the past couple months has been way over what our target is. So this for me means it's time to do something different. I think the same is true for my own spending category. This is like my personal allowance. My average spent is actually not too bad this past month. I think I had an extra cost of um, making a big purchase on eBay. So that is a little bit out of the norm. But I actually decided starting for the month of May, I'm going to do a no spend month. So I won't be using any of my personal allowance. to make purchases. And I think we're going to try to do something similar with our eating out for next month. I do have one auto transaction for my website hosting. I'm going to let that one pass through. It's $5, but otherwise, I'm going to try to stick to 0. And then for our Lyft rides and parking tickets, we actually ended up having a couple of parking tickets, sadly, at the end of last month. So those all got paid in the month of March. But I think otherwise we did pretty good on parking. And then we had one Lyft ride, which was for our babysitter to get home. So you can see what some of the hotspots were for this last month's or April's budget. For our eating out, we were overspent every week except for the third week. And so that also says to me, like, we really need to curb this. I'm going to go ahead and fund the rest of these overspent and talk a little bit about these views and the idea for this safe to spend. So, our whole budget is really structured now in what do we need for our essentials, and then what is nice to have or kind of, the icing on top. So, at a high level, as I go from top to bottom, we've got income replacement, which this is a new category just specifically because we have severance income that we disperse into our budget every month. We've got wealth building, which includes our IRAs, our 529s, our HSAs. Typically, in the past, we've contributed to these monthly, but because I am unemployed right now and my partner will be unemployed in another couple of months, we've paused contributing to our savings for now. We're hoping to come back to this at the end of the year and fund these up. We're going to leave them as is. Otherwise, car costs, childcare costs, and essential bills are all non negotiable. These have been trimmed down as much as possible, and so I consider them to be fixed costs for now. Food and dining is kind of a split. We've got eating out, which I don't consider fixed cost, and groceries, which I do. In the past, I've had these split to their own categories, but I kind of like keeping all of the food related things together. So groceries are non-negotiable, and I really trimmed, our monthly or weekly targets for groceries down to what I think is the bare minimum for a family of 4. As you can see, last month we had a few rollovers because we were doing more eating out than we were cooking. I find those things tend to seesaw each other. Like if we do a lot more eating out, we tend to have a lot more money left over in groceries and vice versa. So um, this is kind of what I expected to see for groceries. And then as we keep going down the list, these are more of the nice to have. So our family life quality, like I said, includes babysitter, clothing, food and vet visits and dog walks for our dog, personal care, um, services and fees, our spending categories, etc. And then we've got our recurring bills and subs. If you've seen any of my other videos, I've split all of these out just to make sure that I can get super granular about how much each of these cost, which are some of the ones that we're planning to cut. And my goal here is to really get down to a maximum per month spend of 175. I'm going to work really hard to make sure we get close to this number. I think that feels totally reasonable to me. Right now, if you take a look at this, you can see our average spent in a month is $422, and that just seems crazy and really high to me. So, gonna work on getting that down. I've started to cancel some my partner and I are still negotiating on, and some of these ones I've marked with X will be off budget in the coming months. That's it. Travel, we do budget for a couple of trips we have upcoming and the cost of dog sitting because we leave our dog home typically. And then you'll see we have some trips we've taken already this year. They're marked with X's just because they'll be hidden categories, but I still like to keep track of how much we've spent on travel when I look at the reports. And then work expenses are irregular. Sometimes my partner purchases something for work that gets reimbursed. Our home upkeep is also very irregular. Sometimes we have to pay to get a new dryer part, or we have an upcoming maintenance fee for our building, so we'll put some money there. And then we have a couple of credit cards with annual fees, so I budgeted for those as well. I have set up a view for all of our non-monthly bills, which is like the semi-annual or annual uh, costs that we have: car insurance, home insurance, life insurance, our license plate renewal, etc., and our credit card annual fees, just to make sure I'm covering everything that is not coming out each month. And then the goal here with the safe to spend is to try as much as possible to reduce and cut things down. And then my hope ultimately with my subscriptions and monthly recurring bills is to collapse everything back into this high level apps and subscriptions category once we've made all of the cuts and cancellations. And then for some of these like SOS categories, I think we're going to try to get to like a target number per month. So, for example, we might say for everything in our family quality of life, we're going to try to keep the monthly spend to, I don't know, $600. And that's what we have that covers everything in this category. I don't know yet what that like breakdown would be. I don't know yet what things we would want to combine. Right now is very much the like monitoring phase and seeing what we spend and seeing what we can reduce, as we're sort of like also getting to some more regularity and stability with what our income is going to be like. Um, so let me know if you are a person who is a high earner, or you're in a family that has a high earner or multiple, maybe. If you're budgeting with six-figure income, if you're budgeting living in New York City, if you're budgeting and you have kids. I'm really curious to see if there's other folks out there, or even, folks making content that have similar budgets, similar circumstances, or similar income that, they are also still finding that they want to budget, need a budget, and there's still value in budgeting. Um, so I will continue to update and share how our budget is changing, share how our income is changing, share how we manage to pay for everything when we have zero income coming in. If we decide to use some of our savings, if I, find another job and how that changes things. But I will keep y'all posted. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments if you have suggestions of other folks who are budgeting in a similar fashion with similar income, or if you just have questions about how we're approaching this severance income and the potential of zero income. Thanks.